Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Jeff Ketch, and that's Anwar Richardson. We are K&A. Do us a solid. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, do all of that stuff that we ask for on pretty much a half hour basis. I mean, we really want your likes and your subscriptions. Today we're talking about Charles Wright, maybe the new starting quarterback for Texas against UTSA on Saturday. Anwar, it's day-to-day. They don't want to outright rule Hudson Card out, but it feels like they're moving forward with Charles Wright taking the reps in practice at this point. We can really like pull the layers apart and talk about Charles Wright and who he is and all of those things. What are your initial thoughts, though, at this point in the week of where we are and the situation that Texas finds itself in?
Well, clearly we're all day to day, Catch. I'm good today. I may not be good tomorrow, but we're all good. We're all day to day. My thought process is I think there was a positive that came out of the news thing yesterday, and this was kind of after you and I recorded Overreaction Monday. But the positive that when I think of the Charles Wright conversation is Bijan Robinson saying that he'd probably be good to go to practice this week and kind of making it a goal to play on Saturday. So, look, if you're telling me you going into this game and you've got a healthy Bijan, you've got a healthy Roshan, you've got the rest of those running backs that are there, then I think from just a competition standpoint, just from a pure athleticism standpoint, Texas still has an advantage. It's hard for Alabama players to tackle and bring down a guy like Bijan Robinson. UTSA, talk about trying to get hats to the ball. If you tell me Bijan's healthy, you already got Roshan, then all of a sudden you got an offensive line catch that played pretty well against Alabama. Then I look at if the Charles Wright has to go, I don't look at it as the deaf, doom, and instruction that it potentially could be if maybe Bijan wasn't there. Now, look, there's still things that he's going to have to do. And, of course, UTSA is going to come ready. They're going to come ready to battle. But I'm just saying from a positive standpoint, knowing that Bijan's there, when you ask me where my mind is at, knowing that you have Bijan, maybe all he needs to do is just rub some mustard on it and make it feel better. But if you rub some mustard on that shoulder, it makes it feel better. Then I think Longhorn fans should say, okay, if you just get through this week with Charles Wright, let's hope that Hudson Card could maybe be able to go the following week.
In talking about Bijan, we'll get back to Charles Wright in a second. Did you feel any kind of way about Bijan talking about it's sore and I've just got to play through it? And there was a part of me that wondered if that's the right approach. I don't know if asking that is right or wrong, but I don't want him to – if I'm Texas, I don't want the shoulder to be a thing that's bothering him all season long. There's a part of me that wondered, like, from an NFL draft standpoint, if your shoulder's not feeling good, sit it out until it is. It's football, though, and maybe your body's just hurt and your shoulders are going to hurt during the season. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder where the line is between cautiousness versus it's football and like you just have to deal with some of this stuff. And I wonder how different my approach with Bijan might be if it wasn't Charles Wright potentially playing quarterback on Saturday. If it was Quinn Ewers, do I feel different about potentially how I might treat that situation? Have you thought about it at all?
No, but as you speak about it, Bijan, it seems just to be a team first kind of guy. Like this is a guy that we know, Catch, but before the season, there were talks behind the scenes as to, should he play this year or should he not, and just focusing on the NFL draft. And that seemed to be something that Bijan really wasn't that interested in. It seemed to be that he's, and look, he can still put him in a first round pick and just secured himself. And no one, we're not at the like, ooh, let's look down on that kind of phase anymore. I think everyone kind of understands how guys make business decisions. So he seems to be a team first kind of guy. He's, and he played even last season as much as he could, and only when he couldn't go. was Bijan. Did Bijan say, okay, I'm sidelined and I'm out? And that was, when things were really going that well. So, just as you speak about it and just having conversations with him over the past few years, it makes sense that he'll go as long as he can. I think he means it when he says he just has to tough it out, Wimp, and try to just get through it. Like, I definitely do think so. I think Bijan operates kind of differently from a mindset. He's very spiritual, very faith-based. And so, he's going to operate on that level as opposed to, a practical, what I can see kind of level. So I think that's the reason why I think Bijan will still give it a go and try to play. And I think Bijan views it as this team needs me as opposed to what's in it for me.
No, I totally agree. I just wonder, there was a part of me that wondered, is there somebody that in the background would say, maybe slow down, maybe pause, maybe just think about this a little bit longer. But you're right. I mean, everything about Bijan has basically been anything I can ever do for the team, that matters first and foremost. So I guess that leads me to a two-part question centered around Charles Wright. If Bijan plays and he's in a backfield with Charles Wright, what should our expectations from a workload look like for Bijan? Because if he's not hurt, I'm giving him the ball in 25 times, one way or the other. The other question is, what do we think from a point standpoint? I ask this question to you every week. What's the number? What's the number for this Texas offense in your mind, with Charles Wright at quarterback, a banged up Bijan in the backfield that may or may not impact his total touches? Maybe they can't give him 25 this week. Maybe they want that to be 15. And when we think about a UTSA team that scored in the 20s against Houston, scored 35 against Army, they've got a senior quarterback. I mean, it's a hard thing to completely put your thumb on and hold down, I think, I think the Bijan part may be easier than the what's the point total part.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting when we talk about Ketch, like you were talking about this the other day. Like if there's 25 that has to happen, 25 pass attempts or 25 carries, which one do you want? Right? That's not rhetorical. Which one would you prefer going into this game?
You want easily 25 carries. I mean, to me, this is a week where your offense runs the ball 50 times.
Yeah. This is a week you bring out the wishbone, right? The triple option, right? This is the week where, I mean, you'll probably see some of the Wildcat, right? With Roshan and that. But this to me is, you grind it. Like, this is not the game, with Charles Wright, where, look, this is whatever he is as a quarterback, we understand going into this game that the odds are stacked against him, right? He entered this game as a third string guy. He hasn't really received first team reps, has barely played throughout his career. A little, what is it, a fraction in the season,
taking a few snaps.
Yeah, and then same thing last year, right? So this is not a knock on Charles Wright. This is just an understanding of football. Dude hasn't been put in this position, and now he's being put in and having to do certain game planning and have to approach something as a starter, something hasn't done since he's been in high school, at Austin High School. So it's a little bit tough situation for him, and that's why you need these other people around him. This is a game that you don't say, Charles Wright, we need you to win. This is a game that you say, Roshan, we need you to win. Keelan, we need you to win. Bijan, we need you to win. Jatavian Sanders, was always a tight end, is always going to be a young quarterback's best friend, right? You need that to be effective. But, if he can hit some deep balls, for sure. But you want to ground and pound. When you start thinking about a point total, Catch, I mean, this defense is good, right? I think this defense is good. If this defense can do what it did last week, and I know it's asking a lot, but if this defense for the most part held Bama to around 10 points for a period of time. So Catch, I think if Texas can get 24, 28, I think if I'm going to buy into this defense, right? That's what I have to do, buy into this defense. I think Texas can win a 28-13 kind of game if it's kind of like that. I think this defense would be strong enough to hold them for 4 quarters.
25 was the weird number in my head, kind of thinking 24. So you needed to get just above 24 to win the game. I weirdly think UTSA is going to have a little bit of success offensively. But if the Texas defense that we've seen the last 2 weeks shows up, then maybe you don't even need 24. I mean, UTSA wasn't really impressed with them again in their game against Houston when I watched it, but I mostly watched the second half, and that was already after they had taken a 21-0 lead. I think they're capable, but I haven't been super impressed by their personnel, but their quarterback's impressive. And I think he'll be one of those weird players that every year you play that does a little more than you might have anticipated coming in. I think Texas probably has to score 25, and it doesn't feel like that puts a ton of – it's not asking that much of Charles Wright at that point. I think if you're asking Charles Wright in this Texas offense on Saturday to score more than 30, now you're probably asking – you may be asking Charles Wright at that point to throw the ball more than I think they're going to want to. I mean, they're going to really want to be able to run the ball with Charles Wright. And I think you may see a little bit more quarterback run action than we've seen. Now, you can't get that guy hurt too. So there is that to consider when your quarterback depth is so limited. I mean, you and I going into this video, we're looking up Ben Ballard and what, hey,
yeah.
What high school did he go to? That's right. He's from Austin too. He went to Hyde Park. It's a delicate game that Sarkisian has to play with this young quarterback. And I wonder privately how difficult Sark would say the maneuvering at that position is this week. He's got to get a guy completely ready that hasn't played at all in the middle of the season. And he only gets a few practices. It's not like they get a camp to get him completely up to speed with the timing of all of his receivers and stuff. I mean, I think that this is a weekend. It's a good thing last year's defense isn't on this year's team. And it's got to be the thing on Saturday that if Texas does anything from the first 2 weeks in the third week, as they've done in the first couple of weeks, they got to play really good defense on Saturday and not put their offense in a position where it feels like, God, if we punt, we're in trouble. That's a lot of anxiety to play with. You're already playing with third-team quarterback anxiety. You can't let that permeate in every single drive. And really, they got to be able to run the ball on Saturday against UTSA. It's a real statement game for the offensive line when you absolutely need them to control the line of scrimmage. To see them do that and lead Texas to a win, I think would be really valuable for everybody if they can get through this and succeed on Saturday. I think means a lot in future weeks about all of these position groups feeling really good about their viability and helping and contributing to wins. They'll never be needed more than this week.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And, when we start thinking about a guy who hasn't played since high school, what all that entails, Ketch, right? That means he hasn't gotten hit since he's in high school, right? I mean, so, quarterbacks don't ever get hit. So that means he hasn't taken a lick in a while and been taken to the ground or anything to that effect. And again, we're talking about bigger guys that he's going to have to get hit by. And what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And how does he respond? And how does he shake that thing off? And, again, we've talked about how Hudson Card may sometimes feel that there's footsteps around. Well, let's see what, Charles Wright does when there are footsteps around and what that looks like and what that entails, the game speed everything to your point, Ketch. Xavier Worthy, how fast is that guy? You got to get a pass to him. Jordan Whittington is not a slow guy as it is. So how do you get a pass out to him? And then Tariq Milton, like all these guys that you got to find ways to get the ball to. in order to make sure your offense isn't one-dimensional. Like, I don't know what UTSA does. Do they just focus in on stopping the run and say, let these guys beat us and see if he can make a play? It's probably what you would have to do, Ketch, right? You just focus in on Bijan and Roshan, stack the box and say, okay, we'll see if this young kid can beat us. Or do you just blitz him at all points and just don't give him any kind of thing? I mean, maybe it's a combination of all that, but yes, this is a game where you don't want to say, like, I need the offense to win. Like, I need the offense to carry us through this day. There has to be certain other things that everyone's going to step up. To your point, the defense is got to make it to the point where the offense can just get through to this game. And hell, we're saying get through. Maybe lightning is catches in a bottle catch or some sort of thing like that. And maybe we're talking about Charles Wright mania when it's all said and done. I mean, who the hell knows? There's a reason why there's Disney movies exist. So for all we know, this guy comes out and we're like, where the hell has this guy been the entire time? But it is still a tough task to catch, to your point, where Steve Sarkisian pretty much identified that this was a guy that he thought was, his third best quarterback. Now, he also said there's a guy that's made a lot of progress, Ketch. Like, so he did compliment him on Monday and say from where he was last year until this year, he's made a bunch of huge strides ahead. And then when I talked to some of the players on Monday as well, they actually expressed a lot of pride in saying, like, he's made a lot of progress, as far as getting up to this point. And look, becoming a third string guy, basically kind of, becoming a guy that kind of overtakes Ben Ballard for that position, says that he's been doing something right, behind the scenes. Malik Murphy's not healthy. So, maybe all is not bad, but we can't, just put the rose-colored glasses on and say, next man up. It's just Charles Wright. Like, no, it's still going to be a little bit of a challenge.
Well, he's not a walk-on, right? I mean, he is a scholarship player that was recruited to be the quarterback in the 2021 class. And look, that originally was going to be a 2-quarterback class with Jalen Milroe and Charles Wright. And then Jalen Milroe peels off, goes to Alabama, and Charles Wright is the only guy in that quarterback class. But this is still a guy that had offers. He committed to Iowa State before flipping to Texas. Offers from Arkansas and NC State, and I believe UTSA was a school that was
North
interested
Texas
in
was
him
in there as well.
So, I mean, I think the thing about Charles Wright is he's a scholarship guy, but he's still really young. And because Texas has forever, really since you've been here, it's like whatever redshirt freshman quarterback is available, play him. Gerard Hurd, Shane Buechele, Sam Ehlinger. Yeah. Now we've seen Hudson Card a year ago. Now it's Quinn Ewers. I mean, this will be the 6th redshirt freshman or true freshman quarterback that have played in the last 8 years or so. So that's an incredible number. Yeah. And so all of those guys come with hype. Really and truly, he's the first guy out of that group of players that people aren't being unrealistic about. They're looking at it and they're saying, well, he's a redshirt freshman, and it's a little soon to be asking him to contribute in this manner. But look, the kid's got ability. And I think I feel like I can see the game plan in my head pretty easily, which means if I can see it, Jeff Traylor probably sees it as well. So here's what it looks like. It's a lot of stuff in the flat. You're probably throwing some, you want to get Xavier Worthy the ball. So how do you do that in the easiest way possible? You're running jet sweeps. You're doing those little pick and pop plays where the receiver comes in motion and you a little shovel pass to him. Screens and rollouts. And I think that's what Charles Wright will be comfortable with. So it's a whole lot of, run pass options where you fake the handoff, throw it out into the flat. You're playing play action off of it. And I think they're living in a world of short, quick throws, not over the middle, but it's all on the boundaries. it's all short at the snap or off of play action and bootlegs, and you give him a chance to use his legs and move around a little bit. But all of that's kind of playing in a phone booth. So what I would expect from UTSA, if it's me, my defense is in the phone booth on Saturday. I'm cheating against the run game. I'm doubling down that they're not going to go over the top in the passing game. And so to me, it leaves a situation with Wright, when they pick their moments, can they go down the field and make a play in the vertical? Look, he's not going to whip a ball down the seam 25 yards to Jatavian Sanders. That's not his wheelhouse. But he can throw deep balls. They can try to go vertical. And, I think they've got to be able to keep UTSA honest. And in the moments when they do take their shots, the offensive line's got to keep guys off of him. And that's the name of the game. And if Texas is able to keep him upright, to survive, and the way that you survive, Anwar, and I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but the way you survive in those type of circumstances, your just run game's got to be better than the other team. So you've got Bijan, you've got Roschon, and you've got an offensive line that you're starting to feel good about. You got to run for 6 or 7 yards on first down, right? I mean, it's got to be a lot of 2nd and 3s, 3rd and 3s. You want down and distance to be your friend, and the best way to do that is to run the ball really effectively on first down. And to me, that's the story of the game. Because if you tell me on Tuesday, 4 days before the game, that Texas averages, 2.5 yards per carry on first down in this game, then it's like, Jesus, every drive, now you're really asking Wright to have to make some plays, and you're asking them to do it in down and distances that typically aren't favorable for the offense. I think that's where Texas gets itself in trouble. So I think they'll know what they want to be able to do, and it comes down to, can that Texas offensive line impose its will on call against a team that kind of knows what's coming and doesn't. I don't think UTSA has to fear Texas in the intermediate and deep passing game the way Alabama would have this weekend, where it's like, got to watch Sanders, got to watch Whittington, and my God, you have to watch Xavier Worthy, and you have to defend the entire field against them. I think it all comes in and it's closer to the line of scrimmage. I think most of the action occurs within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. And if you're not running the ball well, you're going to be in trouble. That's the way Texas finds itself in a fourth quarter game on Saturday. Is, with all due respect to Charles Wright, you take him out of the equation and you say, can that running game average, pop 6 or 7 yards a game on first downs and really put Wright into a position where he can succeed, as opposed to putting him in positions where, even if it was Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card, you wouldn't want either of those guys consistently playing third and long distance. So it's Kelvin Banks and Jake Majors and Cole Hudson and Christian Jones, like all those guys really have to dominate the line of scrimmage. And they didn't do that Saturday against Alabama, but it's Alabama. They did do it against Louisiana Monroe. I think UTSA is in the middle of those two things. And I think they'll be able to do it, but I can't say that I know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is Jeff Traylor's audition, right? I mean, this is for him. This is huge because we know that Jeff Traylor signed that extension. That buyout is nothing for any major program that wants him, and this is an audition for him to eventually become that hot name, the next name that of a program that you want to get at. And, Jeff Trail is a smart man. The Catch. He was doing his all shucks thing while talking to the media on a Monday. Oh shucks. Yeah, that darn
let's be
Texas,
quiet and let's not say anything. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, Texas, that team looked like the better team than me. They look better than Alabama to me. They look like the better. Like, he was all shucks again, and he's a smart, very bright, articulate man there. And so this to everything, I think he throws everything, including the kitchen sink, at Texas, just because this I think he throws looks at I think to your point what he does, but I think he throws looks and tries to confuse him and confuse coverages in order to throw him off. To your point with Texas, probably, you don't want to rely on the deep passes. You don't want to try to connect 40 yards down the field with Xavier and risk those kind of things, but you have to take shots. But yeah, the early success on first down, you don't want this team in third and predictable, right? Because the third and predictable, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, something to that effect. Now it becomes, now they can tee off, now they can send the blitz, and now they're going to make it a little bit harder, on the guys. And the one thing I think I'm going to say one other thing to the helping of Charles Wright, and I guess this will just be my mantra for the year when I start thinking about all the aspects and things that need to occur. They've got to get special teams right. You cannot afford to be messing up on special teams. This has to be a thing. Like, they've got to be able to put a freaking ball down for a kicker to kick it. So that has to occur because in a game like this, where special teams is going to be important, those little things matter. And again, to make Charles Wright's life easier, everybody else has to be able to step up and do their other things that they need.
I think it's a great point. I think that there are 3 phases of the game on Saturday, and boy, don't lose special teams, right? I mean, you're at home, you're playing against an inferior team, win special teams, and then you really only need to win one of the other 2 phases. It's if you get your butt kicked on special teams, then I think it puts some potential doubt into if there's a pathway for UTSA to win this game. Getting some plays and points off special teams, some game-changing plays would be one of the areas. And it's not like, even when we just think about field goals, it's snap, it's protection. Mm-hmm. Who's holding this week?
Oh, it's a great question.
They fixed that last week.
Yeah.
By bringing in Hudson Card to be on hold. And it's like, well, that part was taken care of on Saturday, but now they got to figure that out. And do they go back to the guy they had before, Isaac Pearson? Or are you running your 3rd different holder out in 3 games? Then they got to protect better. They got a piece of that 20-yard field goal. So, I thought I don't know how much you blame the line. I thought it was a low kick. I didn't see, there wasn't like a huge surge. Somebody got their hand on the ball, and sometimes that can happen. But you got to make 20-yarders. And if you miss them, everybody is responsible as far as I'm concerned. I'm not looking to point the blame at the kicker. I look at that unit and go, man, I don't know about the snaps. Now I don't know about the holder. I'm not completely sure the protection's great. And, oh, by the way, I'm still kind of day-to-day on the kicker as well. I was going to ask you a question unrelated to special teams. And it slipped out of my head. And that's what happens when you go on long rants.
It's all right.
I should have just been like, Anwar, forget about what you just said. Let me say this.
That's all good.
When we look at Wright, I mean, I guess for you, what's the thing on Saturday that on Tuesday, if I say things are going well on Saturday for Charles Wright, what does that look like for you?
For just Wright, or you mean from a team perspective?
Just from Charles Wright's perspective, flow of the game, what they're asking of him. What's it look like? I mean, it's odd. What if he starts 10 for 10? But we're not asking the moon from Charles Wright. We're just asking for him to, I think, be a good bus driver this week. If he can bus drive and not turn the ball over, I feel like Texas wins this game. But what does that actually look like?
Yeah, I mean, well, it looks like a guy that once he gets past the first series, because I think we'll all overreact to the first series, right? And I think we got to, like, whatever that looks like, you just got to say, all right, let's give him a mulligan on the first series. I think once he gets past that, I think what it looks like for me, Ketch, is the success for him is kind of where we started with. I think it's committing to running the ball. I think an offense that a play calling that doesn't involve a lot of reads for him. I don't need Charles Wright having to get on his third and fourth read, Catch. That's not what we need. We need this quick, simple reads. It's 1, 2, or run, right? That's all it needs. So if you're having that success where he has to do a couple of reads before he either has to, the license to throw away the ball or be able to run with it. That looks like a success, for me. And then, I hate to go into the obvious of just being able to move the football a little bit, but, probably just converting of third downs if it gets to that. I think if they're having that kind of success on third downs and not punting, when I say it again, there's no disrespect. It's more of just a protection. The less Charles Wright has to do, I think the more this successful this team is.
Who do you think his guy will be on Saturday?
His top receiver, Datavian.
I think it's going to be Whittington. I think Whittington ends up if you tell me there's a guy who catches 6 passes on Saturday, I think it's Whittington. I think the guy who's most impacted by these injuries is Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
And I think you saw it on Saturday. He had 3 for, I think, 51 or 41 early in the first quarter. And it was like, okay, they're going to keep piping him the ball. And Alabama can't deal with him. But when Hudson came into the game, you saw suddenly Worthy's effectiveness changed. And I think it's even more impacted by Saturday. So I'm really curious to see how they get Xavier Worthy involved in the receiving game, knowing that it's not as simple as run down the field. And, those plays that they've got between Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers, they can't run that stuff with Charles Wright. So what can they run and how can they put him in it? That's kind of my last thing I'll say on the subject as a whole today is you can't forget about Xavier Worthy and how they make Worthy coexist in a world where the quarterback doesn't have a big arm. And, you can't make it so that everything Worthy does you can see coming a mile away. Oh, hey, here he comes in motion, jet sweep, or, this is where they're going to do something with him. You'd like to be able to use the whole field. I just don't know that they're going to be able to do that with Worthy really until Ewers comes back. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, it felt like the connection between him and Hudson Card still had some work to do on Saturday. It didn't feel like those guys had a great chemistry.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
Well, look, I want to know. Leave in the comments section, what are your predictions on Saturday if Charles Wright starts the game? Can he break 200? Is there a world out there where he's 250 and above? Am I wrong? Is Xavier Worthy the guy? Paint the picture of what you think Saturday looks like if Charles Wright is your starting quarterback. Do us a solid, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Be on the lookout for our content throughout the week. It's Tuesday. I've got the OB at night video, live video coming out later tonight. Anwar's got Drunk Uncle on Wednesday night. We got the Modcast on Thursday. We're living day to day this week. The news and what's available and all of that stuff is changing on a daily basis. So don't miss a second as we update you and talk about it here on the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. Until tonight, when I'm doing the OB at Night live show, you guys be well and take care of each other. Later.